Hi, everybody. My name is Shaaron. I'm a grateful exercise and food addict here in New York. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Gray Sheet. I write my meals down, commit them to my Gray Sheet sponsor or another qualified Gray Sheet sponsor if that my sponsor is not available. I don't eat between meals no matter what. And abstinence is truly the most important thing in my life. And I'm abstinent this beautiful afternoon here in New York by the grace of God and the help of everyone in this fellowship. And I am truly grateful to be abstinent. My abstinence date is April the 26th, 1996. But I always say that every day I get up is a new day and it's a new beginning because I always have to keep doing what I did the last day, just like I did today or any other day. And I'm glad that we do have some beginners at this beginners meeting because I came into Gray Sheet after I really reached the bottom with my eating disorder. I am also sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got sober in 1982. And before then, my eating was what I would call just kind of normal for my family kind of eating. Some days you ate a lot, and sometimes you didn't, but it was no judgment. But I personally, my own discomfort started in my teenage years. That's when I picked up the exercise addiction because I did not like when I started gaining weight as a teenager. So I started using exercise very heavy duty, but I also had my binge days. But it seemed like in those days it was able to kind of not go above a certain amount of weight and then I would drop down again. So I was one of those people that was a yo-yo person. My drinking, which started at 18, well, actually probably tasted some stuff before then, but my own voluntary drinking started at 18. And when I picked that up, that kind of kept the eating sort of at bay for a while. It's not like I didn't eat. Of course I did. And I also would still be trying to exercise. I'll never forget when jogging became a big deal in New York. And they said, "Oh, you could have these alcoholic beverages and you can go out and run and you can have this certain kind of foods and whatever, starchy foods." That's what they recommended. And so I was a running fool and just trying to keep the weight off. Of course, I also invented my own diets as well as Weight Watchers and a couple of other things, but I really didn't spend a lot of money on diets because I didn't make a lot of money. My money was wasted on my addictions. So in 1982, when I came into AA, I changed seats on the Titanic almost immediately. I found out I have a very oral fixation. And what I did was, because I wasn't drinking and drugging a day at a time, boy, was I eating. I ate the way I drank. I was a two-fisted drinker and I became a two-fisted eater. And those were the days when the weight really started coming on. That was when it was like out of control, skin breaking out, all kinds of stuff, just my knees and elbows and whatever. And especially if I tried to exercise when I was heavy, forget about it. My body was not happy. I was not happy because I got sober at 33. I didn't get into this program of GreySheeters Anonymous till I was 47. So I did a lot of damage. This disease is cunning, baffling, and insidious. It's mental, physical, and spiritual. And boy, was I a sick cookie, even though I was supposed to be sober. Can you believe it? Anyway, I tried a little OA. They didn't have the food plans at that time. Although I must say, it did bring me the awareness of this being a disease. Because to tell you the truth, because I come from a family of addicts, I really hadn't learned about addictions except for what I learned in AA with my alcohol and my drugs. So I didn't think about eating as being an addiction, the way I was eating anyway, and the way I was exercising. So this brought it up to, brought it into the light, let's say. But because I didn't have any guidance, not really, and I didn't know about the food allergies and portion control, and I didn't know about a whole bunch of stuff. All I knew was that I went to meetings, I prayed, I worked my steps, I sponsored, I was working program and my other program too, but it wasn't working and I was miserable and I got more and more miserable as time went on. Okay, so how did I end up here in GreySheeters Anonymous? Well, I had a couple of friends from OA who told me about it. They were OA, AA, AA, OA. They were in both the programs. So they told me about it, and a couple of them actually took me to meetings. I said, "Okay, this is for you. It's not for me. I'm not carrying around scales and tablespoons and all that, and, into restaurants. Not that I went out to restaurants that much. Forget about it. My life got smaller and smaller and smaller as I ate more and more and more and more and more. But it really made me aware of how something would come over me. It was like the disease was an entity inside of me. And it just took me, it was like, I want that. And I would go for it, whatever it was, whatever the binge food was, and just add it and add it and add it. And, the more sober I got and the more aware I got, I was like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. Here I am, I'm like I'm at a party and I'm not having any fun. And everybody around me is having fun. And I'm one of those food um, addiction deniers. It's not as bad as my other addictions. Yes, it was as bad. And it was getting worse and worse and worse. So I came into, we were face to face. We didn't have phone bridge and Zoom in those days. So I came in on my knees on April the 25th, because the 26th I count as my first day of abstinence. And I was 193 pounds. And I had gone up in weight again because I had gone down. And then I went back up again. So I was up again. And I said, oh God, please help me. And I remember being on my knees, because believe it or not, I was also praying and meditating every day and writing, journaling. I was doing all the stuff that people told me to do in program, but I wasn't weighing and measuring my food, and I wasn't in the gray sheet. So because I had visited Gray Sheet once, I had a copy of the Gray Sheet where somebody had given it to me, and I remembered that morning on the 25th, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, folks, when I was on the scale. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was searching for, I think I was searching for Weight Watchers or something like that, Weight Watchers for the who knows how many times. And I got my old gray sheet that I had used for 10 days. And I said, oh, I remember this fellowship. I remember this food plan. The thing I remembered about the gray sheet was when I weighed and measured the 3 meals that you guys told me to do, all of a sudden my body became quiet. I didn't have that urge where it was like, you gotta have this, you gotta have that. It was quiet. And I said, I remember that. So I went to a meeting, cried my eyes out at that gray sheet meeting, because I thought it was going to be all young girls and, looking for husbands and stuff like that. And I said, no, I'm 47 years old. I'm middle aged. But the thing is, the speaker was my age group. And she called on me, and all I could do was cry. And then the next night I went back and I got my first gray sheet sponsor. And that's where my journey began. And I got to tell you, as a beginner, even though I had my 14 years in my other program, and believe me, my brain was like really Rudy Tooty. What are you going to tell me? But I didn't act like that. Didn't act like that. I said, okay, I'm going to try to do everything that she tells me to do. I'm going to act like I'm a brand new person, that I know nothing about the 12 steps or 12-step programs, especially with food. And I'm not going to discuss my food with anybody who is not in this program. And I'm going to go to gray sheet meetings as well as AA meetings. But I'm not going to, thank you, sweetie. 10 minutes. Thank you, Doreen. I'm going to go to AA meetings, but I'm not discussing my food. And I remember my sponsor at the time in my AA group, she had been my sponsor since I was 3 years sober. So I was 14 years sober when I came in here. And I was in Gray Sheet, and she would try to like, because she was always involved with my stuff, even though she was not an eater. She was not, believe me. She was always encouraging. But she was one of those kind of people who didn't understand eating addiction. But I said to her, I remember she was saying something to me about, oh, you know what to do now. And I said, oh, her name was Margie. I said, Margie, because she's gone to the big meeting now. But I said, Margie, you can tell me anything you want to tell me about alcohol and drugs, but when it comes to my food, we are not discussing it. And I remember, and I was so scared when I said it to her because she had practically raised me because I was a real sick cookie. We're not going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you about that AA story, but I was really sick when I came into those rooms. And she raised me and she said, okay. And that was that. But I got to tell you that as time went on, I still did my prayers. I did my meditation. I went to my meetings every day. I worked my steps, even though in Gray Sheet they wouldn't allow me in an A wall unless I got 90 days. And I really didn't understand that because, hey, that's not how we did it in my other program. But that's okay. I read steps 1, 2, and 3 every single day. I used to be, when I was working at the time. I used to get on the R train over here in Queens, and I had that little teeny weeny 12 and 12 that I can't even see the print in anymore. But I'd be on the train and I'd be reading step 1, 2, 3. And if I took a break at work, I'd be in a quietest spot or out. And I used to work near Central Park because I worked at a museum. I would be sitting on a bench, reading my steps, quiet, whatever I could do just to do that, praying like crazy and making those phone calls. Oh, I was so glad I had an extension next to my desk because I was making phone calls all day long. If an urge to, like, sometimes every once in a while, during withdrawal, something would be happening, I'd be on the phone. I don't eat no matter what. This is Shaaron from New York, and I hope you have a great abstinent day. And every once in a while, I get somebody who is at home. And then they'd say, oh, yeah, really? And I'd get to ask them, how did you stay abstinent today? I wanted to know how all those people sometimes did this. I still do. I'm still very curious. But the thing is that I just became so teachable or reteachable. It's sort of like that set aside prayer where they said, God, help me to set aside everything I think I know for an open mind and a new experience. I needed that. I needed that. And here I sit all these years later, one day at a time. So, what can I tell you? My life has changed. I'm not 47 anymore. I'm now 74. Okay. And it was so funny because one of my sicker relatives called me last night, and she is pretty. She's got some mental stuff, but not, maybe in addition to all the stuff we've got. But anyway, and she's kind of down and everything. She said, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm getting ready to go to the gym. And I was getting ready to go to the gym for my 7:30 class at my gym. And it's like, we do all this stuff with weights and everything. And I have such a blast. And I remember being so scared to walk into the first day I went in because I said, it's going to be, once again, it's going to be all those young people. I'm not going to fit in there. Thank you, dear Doreen. But I do fit in. I am not normal by any means. I am just a regular person who happens to be an addict. Okay. That's my job. I got to look out for my recovery. But whatever I've learned in these rooms over these years, believe it or not, it's carrying out to other people. I am now Shaaron. I don't have to put on any facades. I don't even put on any facades when I'm in gray sheet meetings. What you see is what you get. This is me. I don't have to hide anymore. And I'm learning even more today because I started another program where it's like, my step work, because I'm in another AWOL, of course. Hey, now we'll deal with this. And that's what God said. And I said, okay, here we go, God, let's do this. All right. But basically, I weigh, I measure, I sponsor, and I am sponsored. Thank you, dear Doreen. And we don't eat no matter what. And thank you for letting me share.